Ram Hare Ram Hare Hare Ram Hare
Hare
Hare Hare
Krishna,
Ram
Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhu Ji,
Hare
Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Hare
Thank you,
Hare.
Anand Kumar Prabhu Ji, Pawan Prabhu Ji, Vishnu Prabhu for leading the chanting today. Start at Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatarine जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. Okay, so we'll continue with our prayer of the week. Radha Krishna Pranamura. Anybody would like to sing today? I'll continue. I'll sing and then we'll read the translation. Radha Krishna Pranamura Jugala Kishore Radha Krishna Pranamura Jugala Kishore Jivane Marane Gati Aronahi Mor Jivane Marane Gati Aronahi Mor Kalindira Kule Keli Kadambe Ravana Ratana Bedira Upara Bosabo Dujana Shama Gauri Ange Divo Chandanera Gandha Chamara Dhulabo Kabe Hirimukha Chandra Gathiya Malatir Mala Divo Dohar Gale Adhare Tuliya Divo Karpura Tambule Lalita Vishakhadi Jata Sakhi Brinda Agyaya Koribo Seva Charanaраvinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dasirano Seva Bhilasha Kore Narottama Das Seva Bhilasha Kore Narottama Das Radha Krishna Pranamura Jugala Kishore Jivane Marane Gati Arunahi Mor Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sakhirinda Vikyapti ki jai, Shri Narottam Das Thakur ki jai, Srila Bhakti Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, read the translation. Right, I can go ahead and read it. The divine couple, Shri Shri Radha and Krishna, is my life and soul. In life or death, I have no other refuge but them. In a forest of small kadamba trees on the bank of Yamuna, I will seat the divine couple on a throne made of brilliant jewels. I will anoint their dark and fair forms with sandalwood paste scented with chuya, and I will fan them with the chamara whisk. Oh, when will I behold their moon-like faces? After stringing together garlands of malti flowers, I will place them around their necks, and I will offer tambula scented with camphor to their lotus mouths. With the permission of all the Sakhis, headed by Lalita and Vishaka, I will serve the lotus feet of Shri Radha and Krishna. Narottama Das, the servant of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, longs for this service to the divine couple. Hare Krishna. Okay. Did anybody figure out what this was? Shivya? Homework from yesterday? Okay. I just did some Google search. It just came back again, like saying that this is some scent prepared out of sandalwood only. So it's like maybe double dose of mercy or double dose of sandalwood paste scented again with sandalwood fragrance. So that is like Prabhupada says, we should be concentrated. Like this is like concentrated form of sandalwood with double sandalwood paste with sandalwood fragrance. Okay, Hari Bol. All right, so let's continue with Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit. We moved to chapter 38 yesterday. No one listens to a poor man, I think Prabhupada said. So Prabhupada yesterday we saw after Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and being nicely welcomed by the Vrajavasis. And Radhanath Maharaj also was mentioning he was about to leave Vrindavan because of his visa expiry. And he was told by the sadhus and Vrajavasis to don't want to leave Vrindavan. So they were telling him the glories of New Vrindavan, Dham that Prabhupada has established in USA. So if he goes back to US, he should go to New Vrindavan. So by going there, he will always be in Vrindavan. So we see the potency of the words of the Acharyas. Prabhupada himself established it, and all the other Brajbasis are also equating it with the Vrindavan of India. So that's why we say Vrindavan and New Vrindavan here are non-different, and we are so blessed that we are just, most of us here are Midwest Ohio, and Kentucky, so it's not very far from here, the Dham. So we can always visit, and I know most of us do visit very frequently, so that is wonderful. And then Prabhupada went back to Delhi. He averted the war between India and Pakistan, as he predicted, because of the power of the Sankirtan Yajna. The war was wrapped up quickly, and now Prabhupada is back in Bombay, and he's trying to get the land in Bombay as well. So he has already got the land, is yours, as we read the last chapter, in Mayapur, in Vrindavan, and now he's looking for that in Bombay, which is he called as the gateway of India. So he has met this Mr. Nair, Mr. N, as it is called here. So we'll continue reading from here. Anybody would like to read today? Mr. N. Okay, then I'll continue. Mr. N was a short, stocky man with a receding hairline. His hair was clipped short, and his round face was pockmarked. He appeared to be in his 50s. Mrs. N had a fair complexion and, unusual for an Indian, wore her hair short. Prabhupada had brought flower garlands and prasadam from the Radhakrishna deities of ISKCON Bombay, and these he offered to Mr. and Mrs. N. Mr. N invited his guests to sit with him and his wife on the front porch, which faced a picturesque garden. Srila Prabhupada openly expressed his appreciation of the Juhu land, but admitted he had very little money. Mr. N, however, seemed inclined toward Prabhupada and said he wanted to sell him the property. Quickly, they reached a verbal agreement. To Mrs. N, however, the agreement seemed too liberal, but when she objected, her husband overruled her. Prabhupada and Mr. N agreed on a down payment of 200,000 rupees. After making the down payment, ISKCON would immediately receive the conveyance. ISKCON would pay the remaining balance of 1.4 million rupees later. Or 14 lakhs rupees later in regular installment. Prabhupada negotiated further regarding the down payment, offering to pay 50,000 rupees now and another 50,000 later, at which time ISKCON would be allowed to move on to the land. As soon as they paid the remaining 1 lakh rupees, the down payment would be complete, and Mr. N would give them the deed. Mr. N agreed. Srila Prabhupada was always one to think carefully over such business transactions. He had said that if a businessman tells you, "Sir, for you, I'm making no profit," you should know he is lying. Therefore, even in ISKCON's early days in New York City, when the real estate shark Mr. Price had posed as a well-wisher of the devotees, Prabhupada had been suspicious. Mr. Price had, in fact, cheated the devotees, despite Prabhupada's warnings to them. Now, as them, Prabhupada was suspicious. But he wanted the Juhu land and would take the risk. Prabhupada had taken similar chances. At Jhansi in 1953, he had occupied a building, although he had had little legal standing or financial security. And in his first storefront in New York, as well as in his largest building today, the Watseka Avenue Church in Los Angeles, he had moved in without assurance of the monthly payments. Practically, the entire success of his movement had come by his taking one risk after another for Krishna. When the devotees in Boston had written to Prabhupada that they had rented a big house for $1,000 a month, calculating that they would be able to make the payments by dramatically increasing their Back to Godhead sales, Prabhupada had approved and even commended their example to others. So if some risks were involved in Bombay, that was only natural. Once committed to the land, Prabhupada began to unfold his vision for a grand project in Bombay. On December 22nd, he wrote to Yamuna, "Here in Bombay, we have got good prospects to purchase a very large land in Juhu for a very cheap price, just in the middle of a rich neighborhood. We shall build our camp there and begin constructing a temple immediately, and later on we shall develop a large hotel and school. There is also a chance of getting a nice bungalow in Bombay City also. So in general, we shall make our headquarters in Bombay and also build up Vrindavan and Mayapur." While devotees around the world delighted to hear Prabhupada's plan for a Bombay center, devotees in Bombay had mixed feelings. To envision a temple rising from what was little more than a jungle tract was not easy, nor was it easy to envision the five-star ISKCON hotel Prabhupada spoke of. The tenement buildings in the rear of the land were fully occupied, and according to Indian law, the tenants could not be removed. If the devotees moved on to the land, they would have to erect temporary housing, maybe even a temporary temple, and the land was mosquito ridden and teeming with rats. Juhu was a small, almost isolated neighborhood without wealthy ISKCON supporters. Although Prabhupada and land speculators predicted that Juhu would grow, at present it was only a village of about 2,000. To reside at Juhu would be a drastic contrast to the comfortable Akash Ganga building in downtown Bombay. Tamal Krishna explained to Prabhupada, "We are Westerners. We cannot live like this. We need doorknobs and running water." "Don't you want to become purified?" Prabhupada replied. When the Bombay devotees learned of Srila Prabhupada's response to Tamal Krishna, the words, "Don't you want to become purified?" went deep into their hearts. They knew that Prabhupada was asking them to become more austere and that it was for their ultimate benefit. They began to regard moving to Juhu as a formidable spiritual challenge rather than a drudgery. Developing Developing the Juhu property was important to their spiritual master, and it was something greater and more wonderful than they at present realized. Prabhupada knew he was asking his disciples to make a great sacrifice, but he could not avoid it. To preach Krishna consciousness, a devotee had to be prepared to tolerate many difficulties. And whatever difficulties he was asking his disciples to undertake, he was prepared to undertake to a much greater degree himself. On the one hand, he didn't think that living on the undeveloped Jew property would be too difficult for his disciples, provided they maintained cleanliness and chanted Hare Krishna. Yet he knew that because they were Westerners, they would find it hard. A preacher, nevertheless, had to make sacrifices, not artificially or arbitrarily, but to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes serving Krishna was pleasurable, sometimes difficult. In either case, a devotee had but to do the needful, acting as a menial servant of the spiritual master. Prabhupada counseled his Bombay disciples, impressing on them his vision for ISKCON Bombay. Although all of them were ready to follow his decision, some of them had been feeling doubtful and weak-hearted. Seeing their spiritual master's commitment to the project, however, they vowed to give up their separatist mentalities. Prabhupada then left for Jaipur for a week's preaching engagement at the Radha Govinda temple. Hare Krishna. Jaipur, January 12, 1972. Jaipur is an ancient city in the state of Rajasthan. Occasionally, some of Prabhupada's disciples would go there to purchase marble Radhakrishna deities for ISKCON temples in India and around the world. The devotees in ISKCON centers in Detroit, Toronto, Dallas, as well as throughout Europe, wanted to install Radhakrishna deities, and with Srila Prabhupada's permission, were ordering murtis from Jaipur. On such an errand, two women, Kaushalya and Srimati, had gone to Jaipur in January of 1972 on behalf of the New York City temple. When a government official had discovered Srimati wasn't carrying her passport, the official, suspicious of spies due to the war with Pakistan, had insisted the women stay in town until Srimati's passport arrived in the mail. Meanwhile, the girls had daily visited the Govindaji temple and had sometimes held kirtana in the street in front of the temple. They had had daily talks with P.K. Goswami, who was in charge of the temple, as well as the Jaipur businessmen and other respectable citizens. Almost everyone in Jaipur regularly visits the beloved deities of Radha Govinda. The citizens of Jaipur had been moved by the devotion of Prabhupada's two disciples, and when one of the men had asked, "What can we do to help your movement?" the girls had replied, "Bring Srila Prabhupada here." Some of Jaipur's prominent citizens had devised a plan to share expenses and responsibilities in arranging a Pandal program, and the two women had sent a letter to Prabhupada in Bombay inviting him to come and preach. He had agreed. At Srila Prabhupada's request, devotees from Delhi and other Indian centers came to Jaipur to join him. Prabhupada took a small room within the Govindaji temple compound, and his disciples moved into a nearby house. Prabhupada liked the location. The only disturbance was the many monkeys, large, charcoal-faced monkeys with long curling tails. Climbing through the trees and across the rooftops, they would scamper down unexpectedly to steal whatever they could. The women cooking for Prabhupada were exasperated by the monkeys' bold forays to steal vegetables from the kitchen, even chapatis right off the fire, and they complained to Srila Prabhupada. Neither be their friends nor their enemies, Prabhupada advised. If you make friends with them, they will simply be a nuisance. If you become their enemies, they will become very vindictive. Just maintain a neutral position. The monkeys, however, continued to raid the kitchen. Again, the cooks complained to Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhupada said, if you want to stop the monkeys, then this is what you must do. Purchase one bow and arrow and shoot a monkey on the top of a tree with the arrow. And then when he falls down, take the monkey and hang him upside down by the legs to a branch of a tree. Next to him, you also hang the bow and arrow. This will teach them. Prabhupada knew that shooting monkeys was illegal in Jaipur, and he did not expect his disciples to actually shoot them, but he delivered the advice with a serious expression. Indirectly, he was advising them not to be so upset over a few monkeys. Prabhupada and his disciples immediately joined in the intense devotional atmosphere of Jaipur. Since the Radha Govinda temple was under the jurisdiction of Jaipur's royal family, to visit the deity daily was practically required for all citizens. Morning and evening, crowds of enthusiastic worshippers would come and go, worshipping the forms of Radha and Krishna on the altar. There was Rupa Goswami's original Radha Govinda deities. These were Rupa Goswami's original Radha Govinda deities from Vrindavan. Almost 500 years ago, when a Mughal ruler had attacked the Govindaji temple in Vrindavan, the king of Jaipur had arranged for the deities to come to Jaipur. The worshippers at the Radha Govinda Mandir displayed spontaneous excitement in seeing the deities. They would come forward crying, Jayo, Jayo, Govinda, Govinda, and when the curtains were closing, the people would rush forward to catch a last glimpse of the divine forms. Srila Prabhupada avoided the large crowds before the deity, keeping to his schedule of rising early and translating the Bhagavatam. Speaking with Kaushalya and Srimati, Prabhupada praised them for having arranged the Jaipur Pandal program. You girls are carrying on Lord Chaitanya's movement so nicely, he said. Just see, even without husbands, you go on preaching. He said the Western women were different from Indian women who simply stayed at home. Then Prabhupada discovered that his two women disciples had not actually done a thorough job. Although the Pandal program was to begin in 2 days, no one had arranged for the large tent to be erected. Prabhupada said it was not a woman's nature to do such organizational work. The women became morose to hear him. When they showed him the flyer they had printed advertising the festival, Prabhupada became angry. It is not standard, he said. It did not say International Society for Krishna Consciousness, but only A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and his foreign disciples. What is this? Prabhupada shouted. What, Srila Prabhupada? Kaushalya asked. Foreign? Why do you say foreign? It must be American and European. That is what is attractive, that they are American and European. But you are just a woman. What can I expect? The two women began to cry and left the room. With Shyam Sundara's help, Kaushalya and Srimati had new, corrected flyers printed and returned to tell Srila Prabhupada. But now his mood had changed completely. His anger was gone. He was soft. After all, these disciples had tried their best. In a disarming disclosure, he began to explain that to be a spiritual master was difficult. I chastise you, he said, because it is my duty. Disciple is related to discipline, so it is my duty to my disciples. Otherwise, I am not upset with anyone. I simply do this to discipline you because you are my disciples. He consoled them, saying they were sincere and lacked expertise because of poor upbringing. The devotees present felt Srila Prabhupada was wonderfully expressing to them a bit of what he, as spiritual master, felt in training them. In a great last-minute endeavor, the devotees obtained the pandal and erected it in time for Prabhupada to begin his program as advertised. On opening day, the devotees held a parade through the streets with Prabhupada riding in a palanquin, a large embroidered umbrella sheltering his head. Also, in the procession were decorated elephants, brass bands, and devotees, Indian, American, and European, performing kirtana. Srila Prabhupada's first program was in the morning after the darshan of Govindaji, so as to catch the huge morning crowd. People would come hurrying into the temple to see Radha Govindaji and then proceed out into the large Hare Krishna Pandal beside the temple. On the opening morning, Prabhupada performed an Abhisheka ceremony, bathing marble deities of Radha and Krishna. He named these deities, soon to be shipped to the ISKCON temple in New York, Shri Radha Govinda. After one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples had performed a fire sacrifice, Prabhupada lectured the crowd in Hindi. The schedule for the remaining days would be morning and evening lecture, kirtan, and prasadam distribution. While preaching in Jaipur, Srila Prabhupada was simultaneously reflecting on and through letters to his disciples, acting on matters in many other parts of the world. Although he participated fully, giving 2 lectures a day, and although he constantly met and interacted with guests, friends, and devotees, he was also absorbed in thoughts of other places and concerns. He was conducting his movement on many fronts. Wherever he happened to be at present was his camp, just as a general makes camps in various places, while conducting many battles in the overall effort of a war. His preaching in Jaipur, therefore, was only a small fraction of the scope of his worldwide mission. From Jaipur, Prabhupada wrote his disciples in Calcutta, urging them in their development of the Mayapur land. He wanted a grand opening ceremony by Lord Chaitanya's birthday in March. Unfortunately, the government was restricting foreigners from entering Nadia because of its proximity to Bangladesh. Please try very hard to get those permits, Prabhupada urged his men in Calcutta, as we must be all assembled there for Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. Repeatedly, Prabhupada mentioned his concern over the government's restricting his men. I do not think there will be difficulty if we just go there like the ordinary pilgrims and set up our camp there for Kirtan continuously. Anyone will see we are only serious devotees of Lord Chaitanya and not Pakistani spies. Prabhupada wrote ahead to his disciples in Nairobi, driving them onward with his blessings. Continue to work very hard for his pleasure, and all of you will go back to home, back to Godhead. To the San Diego Temple President, Srila Prabhupada wrote, I am very pleased to hear from you that book sales are increasing very fast. I am hearing such good news from all over the society, and this pleases me more than anything. And Prabhupada was often thinking of the land in Bombay. Sometimes he talked about it or mentioned it in a letter to his representatives there. The Bombay land purchase was still not finalized, and Prabhupada was particularly anxious that his disciples pay the money as agreed and move immediately onto the land. Tamal Krishna was Srila Prabhupada's governing body commission secretary for India. Some of the devotees said that actually Prabhupada was the GBC secretary for India. Although he allowed his secretaries in other parts of the world to manage mostly on their own and to make their own decisions, in India he would scrutinize even small matters and make most of the decisions himself. Still, he counted on Tamal Krishna as his trusted assistant in important dealings. He would send Tamal Krishna from one Indian center to another to help the local devotees with governmental, legal, organizational, or preaching problems. In Bombay, just prior to coming to Jaipur, Tamal Krishna had asked Prabhupada's permission to take sannyas, the renounced order. Srila Prabhupada had awarded sannyas to only a few men, and he had specified their duties as traveling and preaching. Taking sannyas, therefore, not only meant giving up wife and family, but also renouncing managerial posts. At the same time, as Prabhupada had set up his GBC, he had also invited several sannyasis, purposefully not appointing any of them, even though they were some of his most able men as GBC secretaries. The Grihasthas were to manage the temples as presidents and GBC secretaries, and the sannyasis were to travel and preach. Srila Prabhupada therefore had to carefully consider whether or not to give Tamal Krishna sannyas and thus lose his GBC secretary for India. On principle, Srila Prabhupada liked the idea of giving Tamal Krishna sannyas. If a young man was actually qualified to give up family life and to use his intelligence and energy in preaching Krishna consciousness, then Prabhupada was always ready to encourage it. The world was in dire need of Krishna consciousness, and even hundreds of sannyasis would still not be enough. On these grounds, how could he not appreciate the request of one of his leading disciples to take sannyas? But first, he would test Tamal Krishna's determination. Tamal Krishna was insistent. Seeing that Prabhupada would not make a commitment, Tamal Krishna had adopted the tactic of presenting himself before Prabhupada early in the morning without saying a word. In Bombay, he had entered Prabhupada's room, led the Mangala Aarti before the deities, and then sat silently before Srila Prabhupada. Knowing the mind of his disciple, Prabhupada could understand that Tamal Krishna was not only determined but obstinate. After several days of tolerating Tamal Krishna's silent, insistent presence, every morning, Prabhupada had finally agreed to consider seriously the request. Prabhupada was also concerned with Madhuri Devi Dasi, Tamal Krishna's wife. She was an attractive, intelligent girl who had given her life to Krishna consciousness, and Tamal Krishna, by his own choice, had married her only a year ago. Spiritually, Madhuri was Srila Prabhupada's daughter, and Prabhupada wanted to protect her from undue disturbance. Even as householders, Tamal Krishna and his wife had been renounced, traveling with Prabhupada throughout India with little time or facility for private life as husband and wife. Tamal Krishna had been in Bombay when Shyam Sundara had informed him that Prabhupada had mentioned in a letter to Brahmananda Swami in Africa that Tamal Krishna might take sannyas. Spurred on, he had left his wife in Bombay and joined Prabhupada in Jaipur. On leaving, however, Tamal Krishna had asked Madri for his personal copies of the first 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, signed by Srila Prabhupada. Madri had become suspicious. She had asked why he wanted them. I just want to read them, Tamal Krishna had answered. But she had suspected the worst. No, you are not coming back. But assuring her that he would definitely be returning, he had left for Jaipur. Once with Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna again resumed his silent insistence. Whenever there would be an open meeting in Prabhupada's room, the GBC leaders would usually sit in a privileged position near Prabhupada so as to best receive direct instruction. Tamal Krishna, however, would simply sit outside the door. The first time he did this, Prabhupada looked up and said, Tamal Krishna, you are sitting outside? That is very nice. And the other devotees took it that Prabhupada was praising his disciples' humility. When on one occasion Prabhupada addressed Tamal Krishna as Tamal Krishna Maharaj, the devotees were startled. The women devotees in Jaipur, being close friends with Madhuri, became angry at what they took to be Tamal Krishna's duplicity. Although Prabhupada had not given permission, Tamal Krishna went ahead with his plans, even to the point of preparing his sannyasi danda and dyeing his clothes. The women were outraged. Madhuri was not even there to represent herself. Altogether, the women went to see Srila Prabhupada, who patiently and sympathetically heard their presentation. Then Prabhupada called for Tamal Krishna and said, Your wife is my daughter, my disciple, and I have to think for her also. So I do not know how I can do this because she will be in great difficulty. Tamal Krishna argued, but Prabhupada pacified him and asked him to be patient. The sannyas issue had become a topic of controversy among the devotees in Jaipur. The men were rooting for sannyas and the women were opposed. Prabhupada, however, remained grave. Throughout the week-long festival, large crowds continued to come for Prabhupada's morning and evening lectures. Prabhupada would chant prayers from Brahma Samhita and then lecture in Hindi. Not only did the citizens of Jaipur honor Prabhupada, but they honored his disciples also. Here, more than in most of the Indian cities, the devotees were treated not as foreigners or outsiders, but as sadhus. This whole city is made of devotees of Radha Govindaji, Prabhupada commented. The police chief, who visited often, was cordial and respectful. As Prabhupada and his disciples went from place to place in Jaipur during the day, policemen would salute them, halting traffic to let them pass. People invited Srila Prabhupada to their homes and they treated him like a king. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll pause here. Hare Krishna. Yes. Wonderful. Yes, Jaipur, as the name itself is Jai. Jaipur, there is Jai Jaikar of Jaipur. Jaipur is a very beautiful town. Last year, I had the good fortune of visiting Shri Radha Govind Dev Ji deities in Jaipur. And the whole city itself is like a city of temples. Of course, all the foremost deities, like our Rupa Goswami's Ishtadev is Radha Govind Ji. And we also have Radha Damodar there, which Srila Jiva Goswami worshipped. And we have Radha Gopinath Ji, which Srila Raghunath Das Goswami worshipped. So all the primary deities that were there in Vrindavan are actually in Jaipur. So it is very nice. And then Radha Madan Mohan Ji also was in Jaipur, but after the marriage of the princess to the town of Karauli, there's another story behind that. She took those deities to Karauli, which is about 3.5 hours drive from Jaipur. So all these initial deities, all the three, the Sambandhadi Dev, which is Madan Mohan Ji, then the Prayojan, which is the process of bhakti given to us by Shri Radha Govind Dev Ji, and the Prayojan, which is the ultimate goal of life to attain the love of Godhead, which is the Prayojan deities, Shri Radha Gopinath Ji, all of this, and Radha Damodar, all of them are in Jaipur and Karauli close by. So, and like Prabhupada was mentioning here, yes, that temple is, you get, as soon as I went into that temple, I could feel, there's a different kind of vibration there. And it almost feels like the whole city comes to take darshan in the morning. And of course, I'm from Rajasthan, so hearing those Rajasthani bhajans and how people are singing in the Mangala Aarti and even the Darshan Aarti at 7 o'clock in the morning, nice bhajans. It was almost from the bottom of their hearts. You could see people's emotions and their spiritual vibes in their eyes and their tone and in their bodies. It almost literally feels like the whole city of Jaipur is there in the morning to take darshan. That's why the deities there, Radha Govindji, are also called as Nagar Seth. Nagar, like the Nagar is the town, and Seth is as the king, or um, the Ishtadev of the city. So it's beautiful. Every morning, I was there for a couple of days, and every morning, people go from one temple to another, um, taking darshan of these wonderful deities. So yeah, now I can see why there is that spiritual vibe, because Srila Prabhupada was personally there, and the whole temple walls, they're adorned with beautiful pictures of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's different pastimes. The pillars of the temple are adorned with the Shada Goswamis, you know, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatt, Jiva Goswami, and Gopal Bhatt Goswami. Their picture, their and carvings are there on the pillars of the wall. There's a hall there which has a Guinness record, because it doesn't have any pillar in the whole hall is like a big, like more than, I think, 140 foot long, without any pillars. So it has a Guinness record for that also. So it's amazing. And like just Prabhupada was giving the Harikatha here in the morning. Every morning there, ISKCON has a Shrimad Bhagavatam class right in the temple auditorium, uh, from where the deities are to the side of that. So ISKCON Harikatha, Shrimad Bhagavatam Katha goes on there. So it's a wonderful experience. If any of you happen to visit to Jaipur, you should make sure you should go to all these wonderful temples which house the original deities of Vrindavan, of our acharyas, of our Goswamis. Yes, so nice. Okay, anybody else would like to share anything from today's reading?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I just wanted to add that Jaipur is also called as Gupta Vrindavan, hidden Vrindavan, because of all our primary deities present there.
Krishna. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, anybody else would like to say anything? Anything that you liked from today's reading? Yeah, we also saw Prabh- how Prabhupada had to face not just like just at that age, again at 75, he's almost 75 years of age, and how much he's dealing with practically while he's in, like this, they're saying this is like a camp. While here this is one camp, he's dealing with the Pandal program, the printing of the flyers, like I mentioned a few days before. Like that's why it's very important. I see the same mood coming in Prabhupada's disciples. Like I said, when I would make the flyer sometimes a few years ago, and we'll make some mistakes, Malati Mataji would lovingly correct us. Hey, you should do it like this, right? So here we see, these women disciples had not even printed the name International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and Prabhupada corrected them, chastised them, but that was out of his love and out of his compassion, because he wanted to discipline them. So similarly, when we are chastised or disciplined, it is for our betterment, for our good. That is how we should take it, not become upset or sad, right? So, but yeah, so we see that Prabhupada is doing that here, and also continuing to send letters to Nairobi, to um, LA, and to other parts of the world, right, to his disciples. So he's like literally uh, at his command, in the entire movement, entire society is operating all around the world. But again, it is out of his love and out of his compassion, out of his mercy, that he's trying to keep the whole society together. Just like he's like the magnet, and everybody else is attracted to him. Just like Krishna is all attractive, like that Srila Prabhupada is all attractive, but he's keeping everybody together by giving them instructions, be it in Bombay or in Mayapur or other parts of the world. And of course, this topic of sannyas, um, and how Prabhupada is practical. He's also very practical. He's great, because he's saying that, your wife is, to the Malkrishna Maharaj, he's saying, your wife is also my daughter, my disciple. So whatever he has to decide has to be, he's at least considering every aspect practically before making any decision. So, but yeah, nice program in Jaipur, and people are taking advantage of the Hari Katha, Kirtan, Prasadam distribution. So wonderful. Okay. All right. I think we'll pause here. If there are no other comments or no other reflections, then we'll pause here for today and we'll continue again tomorrow. पाञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंतकोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद लीलामृत की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you. Have a wonderful
Hare
day.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.